did the sponsor really achieve what they were looking to get? Were the results of the people showing up kind of what they expected? So was attendance good, right? But a really common one is just like, was there something else there for them besides just basic brand awareness?
They run the show. The show goes by all means like fairly well. Like it's reasonably well received by members. The sponsor was like, "Hey, I had fun. That was nice." And then that sponsor like goes away forever.
All right, we're back for another episode of Association Amplified. Hey, Brianna.
Hey, Marcus. Happy to be back. Today we're going to talk about why sponsored content sometimes fails to renew. So I'm going to set the stage for you. This is sometimes something that we see with associations that have like a fledgling content marketing initiative. So they've opened up some level of inventory for sponsored content, and they've pushed out a sales push, inviting people to submit to usually participate with some manner of webinar, because that's like a format that always sells. It's something that like everyone understands, right? And they actually have like a few takers like coming right out of the gate, and they're thinking like, things are looking good. Okay, we got some interest. All right. Everything's looking good. They run the show. The show goes by all means like fairly well. Like it's reasonably well received by members. The sponsor was like, "Hey, I had fun. That was nice." And then that sponsor like goes away forever. And they're like, "Want to renew?" And they're like, like that was cool, but I'm not really feeling the call to renew again.
Yeah, absolutely. And really that can be scenario one, right? Or scenario two. Scenario one is you go, kind of graduate from slapping logos beside things. And you're like, okay, let's put together some sort of content marketing option for our sponsors and invite them into being able to actually speak. We can leverage the webinars that we're doing, but it'll be a sponsorship focused webinar. And maybe you did that and you're selling like 3 of them a year. In the case where we find that associations have launched it, maybe had some kind of early success and it tapers off. Yeah, I think there's like a multitude of things that really result in things kind of petering off. Um, a big part of it is we have to think, did the sponsor really achieve what they were looking to get? Were the results of the people showing up kind of what they expected? So was attendance good, right? But a really common one is just like, was there something else there for them besides just basic brand awareness? What was the experience for them in terms of like the content that we're producing? And maybe finally would be like, do they feel like this was actually central to the digital component of the association experience? In other words, like, do they feel people saw it, or do they kind of feel like it got swept underneath the rug?
Mm-hmm. I guess let's start with the first one, which is establishing metrics of success for the campaign. I think it's like a good rule of thumb, like right away to meet with your sponsor and talk about like, okay, like this is how big the membership is. Like this is how big the reach for our whatever methodology we're promoting it on, like say it's newsletter pushes usually is. This is how our content that already exists, how much it's being watched. Even if it's your very first one, and you don't know how many views you're going to get, some kind of baseline of like what would be considered success for the program, so that after the launch you can come back and say to them like whether the campaign was a success or not. Because like in a vacuum, they have no idea what that means if you say like, oh, we reached like 30 people, right? Or they're like, is that good? Is that bad? Like how many do you usually get? Like I have no idea where to frame that in my mind, right?
Yeah, like unless your association has really good digital engagement, where typically your online events have like really good turn up, maybe you kind of have some vanity metric that you could kind of hang your hat on. But secondary to that, like if your webinar maybe pulls together, 10 people show up, well, there's another piece there that you could really leverage as part of your packaging this as as essentially as a product to your sponsors, and that would be the signups, right? So are the sponsors able to get access to that registrants that sign up for the initial webinar? Because like pretty standard across the board, any webinar gets about a 50% return on their initial registrations. That's so valuable for them because ultimately, like, why is the sponsor wanting to do this? They're running a business. They're trying to grow their revenue, right? And ultimately, they're participating because they're trying to feed their sales pipeline some qualified leads. And as you as the association, I mean, you're really in a privileged position to provide them a really high value buy as far as it goes in their marketing budget. It's really easy to validate that because you get to say, well, hey, we're gonna put you in front of exactly the type of people that would be interested in what it is that you do. And in this world, like there's so many different ways to spend a marketing budget. The real thing people are after as buyers in a marketing space is they want to make sure that what they're spending their money on is as targeted as possible, right? Because the last thing you want in a go-to-market strategy is a lot of waste. So all that said is that are you really leveraging that as part of it? Because even if it's not 60, it was 30, maybe you're able to get, hey, you got 60 qualified leads out of this. Here's the leads that you got from working with us.
And I think it's really part of the association's job to set up that framing for them about exactly how much more valuable a qualified lead directly from their target market is compared to kind of the largely worthless reach where they might be spending their ad dollars somewhere else, right? I mean, it's tempting to think like, oh yeah, they're marketers, like they know all this stuff, but honestly, not always. Like the more you invest in kind of building that story up front and then following up after the campaign to be like, this is how many you got. Wow, that's so great for you. I think that can just go a long way, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's be frank, and you kind of touched on it there, right? Like doing a brand awareness buy, especially in our digital age, is like pretty low on the totem pole. And then I say that with respect. I mean, like, look, associations are able to generate a lot of money offering simple kind of brand awareness buys, like, with events, putting logo placements places. And that's kind of just been like the standard practice for like decades now is put a logo on it. But today's buyers are smarter. And even those, I'll say it like this as well, as like those buyers that have been maybe even loyally going to your organization and doing those logo placements, those are like the number one people that you should be talking to if you're trying to add more revenue from sponsorship and pull into this, because they already have a level of satisfaction of just being in your orbit. And now you get to go to say, hey, we respect what you folks do, and we think you could contribute to the conversation and really help bring awareness to a given topic. Would you like to do that? Would you like to get in front of our membership and speak? Right. And chances are they're going to love that idea, right? Because a logo is a logo, but for the ability for someone to go up on in front of people and actually convey some competency and earn some kind of respect, if you will, that in alone, it's like if there was no metrics to this at all, that in its own, it's like logo plus. you know, it's more than your logo. You're going to get your logo placement, but your logo is actually going to say something. You could think about it that way.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of what the task is for you, like first making sure that they understand how valuable an association lead is compared to a regular impression out there in the wilderness. And then stage two, helping them understand how valuable it is to be seen as a member that contributes to the educational space in that community, as opposed to just exposure. And then, yeah, just conveying excitement about those points throughout the process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is like a tangible side to this and maybe a less empirical side of it. And, that we touched on here is from a business perspective, you're going to have certain buyers that are looking for like tangible outcomes to justify their purchase. Maybe the buyer itself is getting pressure internally for those more tangible things, which would be, hey, you have this many leads, you reach this many people. And something we can probably touch in later is that the marketing of the event, which is critical for success, that really adds on to like the further impressions that your company gets within your, ecosystem of your association and its audience. So understanding the full reach that you're providing for that customer, that sponsor, and making sure that you're conveying that postmortem, if you will, is important to making them feel satisfied with their experience.
Yeah, yeah, and using that post campaign touch point as the launch for the potential next one, so they just continue to kind of dovetail into each other. Be it that the one of the things that we continually say is that digital sponsorship is, in general, even if it's not content marketing, a lot more valuable than in person because it's so much more trackable, right? Like exactly where people came in, what they did, all the conversions. Like we just have so much more data. So you would be remiss to not actually deliver on that data after the campaign.
Absolutely. It's an advantage, right? Is that someone could go and do a logo placement and it's kind of up to the gods in terms of any sort of tangible success they get out of that. And maybe that's the intimidating factor of this is like, if you sell a logo placement, hey, the logo's there. Like we did our end of the bargain, right? It's like, it's easy to deliver that and say it's an event logo placement. You could tell a sponsor potentially how many people showed up, talk about how awesome the event was. Maybe what can be intimidating to folks is that there is, yes, a certain amount of accountability that comes to presenting more digital options when it comes to sponsorship, especially if you're focused on value creation, which is how you're going to get to that 500,000, numbers. That ultimately this type of path does require some level of lift and commitment to doing it with excellence. But the benefit is that it's what buyers want these days. So putting yourself in their shoes, and like we say all the time, is like a little bit of empathy goes a long way in terms of, finding the answers you need to be successful.
Honestly, there's no sugarcoating it. It is more work, right? It's all about what systems you can put in place to make the lift easier for you. But then honestly, the revenue potential is so much higher. It's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit of a mixed bag, right? Because events are huge sources of work for any association. It's so challenging to put on like a world-class event. There's so many things to consider, and that's why the whole team, comes together to put on these events. There's so many different angles you need to attack it from.
It's just a lift that we're used to, which is funny that I even just now like went to say like, oh, you know how it's totally normal to put like a ton of effort toward an event and that's totally fine. But like, I don't know if you can collect a couple of statistics for a report to send to a sponsor.
Yeah. I mean, the full scope of doing a content marketing series is like, you want to identify what kind of topics that you want to touch on, like aspirationally. If you're doing this on your own, there's tangible work that needs to be done. But what's funny about the event comparison is like, in terms of hours, it's a small fraction, right? You could be charging anywhere between $5,000 to $15,000 for these types of events, and like the overall process is like it's a virtual event. It's nothing too outside of kind of the regular skill set that any association possesses.
Yeah, you're totally right. Anybody that can make events at the scale that associations do can definitely handle this. It's well within their range of capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all those same. I mean, how many associations do regular webinars, right? Or some sort of virtual event on a regular basis if it's networking or whatnot. Maybe it's worth taking a step back and kind of laying out like what's a good example of a live event that is sponsor oriented. Like what is that shape?
Taking a quick pause because we're talking a lot about what sponsor ready content actually looks like. One thing that we see all the time is that associations don't always have a clear picture of whether their digital presence is set up to support these kinds of partnerships. That's why the TaleWind Digital Member Value Audit exists. It looks at three things: your content, your digital experience, and your revenue potential, and then it gives you a clear scorecard of where you stand today. It's free, it's quick, you don't need to prep anything, you're just giving us your website. If you're curious about where the gaps or opportunities are in your association, you can find out at talewinddigital.com/audit. That's talewinddigital.com/audit. Back to the pod.
Talking about the content of it, one mistake that we see made a lot is to completely rely on the sponsor to drive the editorial of the content. Like just putting out a call to submission saying like, you got anything interesting to say? Like, here's your forum to come say it, right? And sponsors that aren't totally content minded, the way that they think about it when they see a call to action like this is, okay, do I have like an announcement? Like, have I made a new product? Is something happening within our organization? It's usually something like that. Like there's something new and they're like, great, there's an opportunity to do a webinar. And they're like, I have a deck, because everyone's got a deck, right? Everyone's always got like some kind of like little presentation cooking or whatever. So they show up and they say like, okay, here's my deck. Like, here's everything I want to talk about. It's like about our new product launch. Then it goes well. And then, okay, now there's no reason for them to ever talk to you again until there's another thing to launch, right? And what you want to do instead is like have them be a contributing thought leader to the topics that are already present in your space, and think about like how their products and services might align to that. Like, yeah, still let them, those product demos, they are really popular and people love them because like that's the hottest tech or solutions like in the space, and people want to subscribe just to see those things. But the problem is it just doesn't have that recurring factor, because it's like, how often do you come out with a new product or solution, right? So really approaching your sponsor, like rather than like, okay, like here's a box to tick, to be like, okay, like I'm your partner to help you work into like where you can be part of our educational initiative. I feel like that's a big part of it. And then also like having a format or like something that's like more of a show that they can like fit into as like a regular contributor, instead of always being like, hey, you have to like arrive with like a cooked presentation, right? That's like where you've like thought the whole thing out from end to end. That's putting a lot on them to like always be cooking up a presentation, right? I know I just said like everyone's got a deck, but like everyone's got a deck like quarterly, like not monthly, right? Like I don't just go, yeah, like like cooking up a deck every month, like, but the more lift you can do to where like we're 90% of the way to a finished show, like just show up and like and tell us what's going on, you know, like that's just so much of an easier lift. And honestly, as much as audiences like do crave those product demos, there is a bit more like of a level of authenticity to like just catch someone in the height of their expertise, like speaking, not that you don't prep them, but like really just like speaking from a place of expertise instead of like I've created this like ride that you're kind of on, right? And allowing them to contribute in that way. I feel like that resonates really well with the audience.
I think people listening probably have a shape in mind in terms of what the webinar already is. Mm-hmm. There's an intro by the host. They announce who they are. The person that's representing the sponsorship comes in, delivers a deck. Everyone's kind of like quiet while this person talks for 30 minutes. Maybe there's a QA at the end. And like that experience that almost leads to you're kind of selling each webinar on its own footing, opposed to if you have a format where it's not led by PowerPoints, it's not someone talking for 30 minutes straight, it's conversational, and you're maybe asking that person questions. It seems so minor, but it really changes the output, I think, as far as the membership goes, like for engagement and for retention. And it also changes the lift for the sponsor as well, right? Where the sponsor doesn't necessarily need to prepare a deck, because I bet you if you, and this is actually I would give as a piece of advice for the sales process is like, ask someone from your current sponsorship base that you have a good relationship with, hey, Patrick, what's the number one thing you wish everyone knew about this? And I guarantee they'll be like, oh, if I could just say this one thing and make people understand about X is actually Y and never do Z, everyone has that, right? If you're really confident in a space and you're passionate about it and you're excellent with it, which are the qualities that you want it from a speaker anyway, darn tune they're going to be, well, not only educated in the topic, but they're going to have a lot of opinions on it. And it's that level of engagement that actually gets people interested. And if you routinely do that, you're not just selling any one given show to your audience, right? You're teaching your audience that, hey, every time this happens, there's going to be an interesting conversation that's related to me and my field. And that really creates a totally different end product.
Yeah, so you're building up like a ready standing audience, and then going back to what we said earlier, that makes the deliverables at the end in terms of what the reach ended up ultimately being higher than it would have been if you're selling each individual webinar. I also wanted to say that the more you bring sponsors into the fold as a partner in educational content, the more you have an opportunity to build them into other initiatives, to pair them with like academics or senior members. And it doesn't always have to be like, oh, we're tuning in to watch sponsor be sponsor, right? Like they're just way more integrated in the community when you like pull them in up front and are like, hey, here's our whole calendar. Like here's all of our educational topics. You can, I don't want to say squeeze, but squeeze so much more buy out of them when you can find other ways to work them in. Whereas if you do the original thing we mentioned where it's like, here's an open call for submissions for webinars, right? Then it's just like, when do I got something to sell? Here I am, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that level of invitation where it's like, hey, we have something we want to sell you. Do you want to listen? They're going to go also in a very robotic mode as well, where they're going to be like, okay, well, I looked at our budget. We already buy these things from you. We're planning to do that again. We're not there's no room in our budget to spend anymore. You're not really going to get anywhere like that, unless, it's a different type of buyer. And I think this is absolutely the most progressive way of thinking about sponsorship is that, approach your sponsors with that partnership mindset and talk to them like we want to explore a partnership with you and see how you really can contribute to our association. And that really opens up, you can both ideate around like what you've currently developed in terms of just advertising, maybe these content marketing pieces, but like you refer to, like maybe there is actually an educational component, maybe a module you're working on where they can contribute in some sort of way, right? And they can express competency and you can find sponsorship dollars to contribute to that product. So being a lot more collaborative and consultative in the sales process can be really helpful when looking to bring up new opportunities, right? Be explorative with people in terms of how they can contribute, what are their goals, what kind of things are of value to them. Because the chances are is like they already got you pigeonholed, right? Okay, you're the association that I, spend this much amount and we put logos, maybe we like buy a booth from you and, I kind of got that, I got you figured out. But opening it up conversationally really changes things and they can honestly just improve the relationship and just make them more loyal to you, right? And it becomes less transactional because there's a relationship building there by listening to them perhaps a bit more.
I totally agree. From the perspective of the sponsor, even when you cut out all of the metrics being so much better, the outcomes being so much better, it just feels so good to really be a collaborator as opposed to the relationship we were originally describing that's like more transactional. Like they just have a good feeling associated with spending time in your orbit, I guess. Even when I can think about like when we go out to collect content marketing opportunities instead of like record a webinar or what have you, the way that like the sponsors like approach me later when they see me on the show for like, hey, like we had so much fun or whatever, and they like remember me by name like when I see them the next year and stuff like that. It's just, yeah, like a night and day like process difference for them.
I've worked with a lot of reps in my career, across many organizations. Very fine people. I don't think I've ever gotten a bad taste in my mouth from any rep just doing their job. They're usually very fine people. It usually just revolves around like, okay, here's how much this costs. I have these kind of things for you to take a look at. What catches your fancy? Is there any questions that I can answer for you? And then go on to the next one. Which, like, I get it. It's a very practical way of doing it. But taking the time to actually talk with someone and ask them the question of like, how do you think that you can contribute? We'd like to leverage you and inside of our organization a bit more. Are there any areas that you think our audience could really benefit from? If I could tell you in my previous lives, like the organizations that I worked for, in the tens of thousands of dollars that, I looked over, any of those organizations, if I had a rep that came in and took my, exhibit money, took my advertising money, but went and said, what do you think you can kind of contribute? We want to bring you in. We want to leverage you, your knowledge, your company's competency. I'd be like, who is this person? I'm way more committed as someone managing those funds, because I feel like it's more of a two-way street that way. And it makes me think about like, oh, maybe there's a way bigger opportunity here from a business perspective, right? By like putting more of our time and effort into this relationship. All right, something else that we should probably talk about before we get out of here is just really like, what are some of the considerations for success here, no matter where you are in your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. You are the one that controls the access to your membership, and if you blindside people last minute with like, "Come see this webinar," like obviously it's not going to be it's not going to be the level of attendance that it could have been if you'd given it kind of a longer time frame to get people used to the idea. So in terms of content for your content, that's something that we say a lot, and I guess it's more of shifting the announcement into content itself, so people don't scroll past it like, oh, it's noise, oh, it's another webinar. Not that people aren't looking for webinars, but there is a degree of webinar fatigue, and there's a fair amount of clutter to be cutting through, especially if you're competing for people's time during their workday, like an actual like 9 to 5 webinar. Like there's going to be a lot to compete with.
Making sure that you have a predefined plan in terms of how you're going to market it, and really being honest with yourself of like, are we doing enough to get this out there? Right? What is the level of emailing that we're going to put into this? Like, what part of our segmentation are we going to be sending those emails out? Who are the types of members that are most likely to engage with this? Are we leveraging all the different channels that are available to us? Be it social, email, or otherwise, right? If you have a internal community that you've started up on your website, are you promoting it there? You want to make sure that people really know that you're doing something, if you're going to expect for it to be successful. And really, you want the membership to be engaged, like for better or for worse. Like especially if you're in kind of beta testing mode, get feedback from your membership as well, if possible, to be able to make sure that you're, almost going back to the beginning, you're hitting on topics that really people care about. Don't necessarily blame the sponsor if, the attendance isn't what you expected, right? It's, when you're shaping this in the beginning, like really maybe preemptively getting some feedback directly from members about topics that are of interest to them. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of knowledge within the organization about what topics are hottest among your members, what's really trending within the year. making it as relevant as possible is going to translate to success.
Yeah, and really giving them a sense of what's going to be in the content and how it's going to be different than other similar discussions. So being super general, like we're having a webinar and it's about cybersecurity, just anything that's like broad topic like that. I feel like that would be your biggest enemy. A good way to dig into like what's the differentiator here is maybe you could have like a pre-interview with the host to like dig into like kind of what it's going to be, so you can put together some text posts or audio posts that kind of like tease it, or maybe you could even shoot a little clip with them ahead of time. Anything to take it from announcement, which can be clutter, to content.
Yeah, actually, this is a really underrated point for any Marcom type person. Ask yourself, like, how many times are you announcing something, kind of broadcasting it out, versus how much are you informing people with actually like a content creation mindset, right? Because one is captivating and one is not. One can easily just become white noise, right? Because everyone's trying to grab everyone's attention, right? So just leading with, hey, we did a thing, isn't necessarily good marketing for your event, right? Opposed to thinking about, okay, what's the hook behind this? Like, why, who are the people that care, and why do they care? And how can I use the creative part of my brain to provoke them to want to learn more, right? That's so important.
Absolutely. And on all of the channels that you mentioned before, like not just being like, oh, we do that, the content approach, but it's just for LinkedIn, right? Like if you're in the email, you just get an email or whatever, but just making sure you take that content first approach across all of the channels of distribution that you're leveraging to get that announcement out. The other thing I want to talk about is assets. Assets. Honestly, having like nice premium assets that you can use to promote the show, that the sponsor can use to promote the show, it just all goes to creating that cohesive, branded, premium feel, right? So thinking about like, you wouldn't have like a movie with no movie poster, right? Like just creating a vibe of like, this is the thing that it's going to be like, whatever channel you see it on, you recognize it immediately. You're like, I know that. Like, that's the thing I've been hearing about. It really allows it to, the more consistent you are with like the imagery around your promotion of it, it starts to occupy more space in your brain. Like I get a lot of emails from webinars that I want to watch, that I do want to watch and I need to learn for my own professional development. And sometimes I will sign up for the same webinar like 6 times because it like I'll just be like, oh, that sounds like stuff I need to know or whatever. And I don't even realize like I should know that I signed up for that. Like it should be clear to me that this is something that is already on my calendar.
It was the branding just so off.
It was just text, right? Like I'd get like an email that'd be like, you come to the AI this and that? And I was like, yes, the AI or whatever. It says AI, put it on my calendar. And then I don't go to them, right? Because something more important happens in my calendar that I need to address.
Does, yeah.
But if it was something that I was like, oh, that was the event I was excited for, like all of the ones that like I really wanted to attend and remembered to attend usually were ones that had a stronger branding force behind it.
Yeah, I was going to phrase that as a question to you. I'm glad you got there. It's like, it is absolutely important to consider that it's worth developing a brand around this. Like if you're going to commit, if you want to have the outcome, right? Like put in the effort to develop a brand for your series, right? So if you invest in the brand, it'll also stand out, right? Like you get all the benefits of why you would want to have solid branding for your association, right? And an addition of like that, well, I guess the easiest analogy would be your event, right? Right? Because maybe it's a little foreign. Like, why does my event need branding? Well, your event needed branding, right? Often it's a common play for every year there's a new theme for your annual event.
I live for that.
It's honestly really fun, right? It's
Yeah.
like what's it going to look like this year, right?
Yeah. And I
What's the
hope there's going to be
theme?
palm trees. I don't know. Like a lot of the time there's palm trees and I never get sick of it. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, we're also nerds for that kind of stuff too, so
Yeah.
maybe we appreciate it more. But I think even anyone could it obviously works, right?
Yeah.
The branding, right? It gives a strong branding, really elevates the end product for sure. And to wrap up the point, it makes it stand out against noise. You don't end up signing up for the same webinar 5 times or just dismissing it as another, request for your attention.
Yeah, like me and producer Jen have this favorite digital event that we attend every year for marketers. It's called Marketland. And it's so heavily branded. It's like, ooh, we're like a millennial disco or whatever. And I'm so excited for that. Like, it's on my calendar only one time.
I gave
No, it's like
Jen so much crap for that. Like,
we love Marketland. You could never take it from us. See how strongly I feel like when the vibes are right. And you can have that for your audience too.
all right, Brianna. So, like, what are the specific assets that you would recommend for folks that are looking at marketing their webinars?
Okay, so most people are familiar with the automated email chain, which is like kind of a critical aspect of the whole webinar ecosystem. So the golden standard is one confirmation once they've signed up, and then usually they do one a day before, one the day of, one either the same day or the day after that's like, did you miss it? Here's the recording. And usually that dovetails into the next part, which is having a live and an on-demand is huge. And especially for the sponsor, because that really extends their value beyond the live to be like, oh yeah, we got like 50 leads in the initial watch, but then the on-demand went on to net like 300 or 400 views like over the course of the next 3 months.
That's a huge value add for them, and properly framing the context that this isn't like vaporware for them and that it's going to live on the website and people can consume it. So they'll think of it as logo placement, right? There's a logo placement on your website, but it's in the form of content. And if people engage with that content, they're going to hear all the smart things that you said. So the performance of that can or cannot be, it's really a personal choice. You could choose to report on that after, say anywhere between 2 weeks to a month in terms of the stats. And that could be another opportunity for someone in your organization to reach back out to that person to try and engage them in some other opportunities. As far as assets go for the marketing, any other points worth mentioning?
Yeah, so I mentioned the thumbnails, which you're going to want to have a cohesive vibe across the whole set. Expanding on that, social posts to promote before the event and to promote the on-demand, so you can keep catching more engagement as you ride off into the sunset. Another thing that's really important is newsletter inclusions or direct e-blast to your membership. We mentioned before that you're really the one that controls the access to your membership. And yes, you can give the sponsors the thumbnails to promote things on social media. You could make text posts for them. You can give them clips from either the live show after or from like a pre-interview. But really, what's driving the most eyes to the registration is going to be you including it in your regular communications, and ideally more than one time before the show. And if you're feeling generous, and we hope you are, also to the on-demand.
Okay, let's put a bow on this one, Brianna. You give me one thing that people can do right now to improve their content marketing as far as digital revenue goes.
Yeah, it's definitely, to me, the biggest takeaway of today's show was to stop letting the sponsor drive the content, but to have probing conversations with them as to where they could potentially fit into your educational calendar.
Yeah, and I would also add in is like pay special attention to like, are you fully realizing the opportunity to them? And if you're being faithful to yourself, are you communicating the value properly? And just don't underestimate your ability to drive value and create value with those opportunities. I think another good takeaway is just really those comments that we gave around shaping the experience. Do you want to touch on
Yeah,
that?
I was actually just gonna yell vibes into the mic. But yes, I know that it seems like the most frivolous part of this whole pipeline, like when it comes to like, oh, all the important things with the deliverables, all of the important assets, the educational alignment. But honestly, like marketing land proved with Jen and I, it really is when it comes to cutting through the clutter, and especially for 2026 trends, all about the vibes.
Got it. 2026, lean into vibes.
Year of the vibes, yeah.
All right, everyone. That's all we got for today. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.